Organisation Undoing Tax Abuse CEO Wayne Duvenage has been listening in and joins me now. Wayne, appreciate your time this afternoon. I suppose the first place to start is for you to unpack what Karpowership is.
Yeah, look, it's a floating gas ships. They bring natural liquid gas or LNG to the ships, which then converted to energy. There has to be a landside infrastructure that is put in place, and then it's obviously turned into electricity and linked up to the grid. Now, this was a risk mitigation program that was tendered for a couple of years ago. At that time, the price of the Karpowerships over 20 years, by the way, so we have an emergency for now, for the next 2 to 3 years. A 20-year deal at that day, in those days, was about 220 billion rand. Now, price of liquid natural gas has gone up threefold, from $5 per 1,000 cubic feet to 15. It's retracted a bit, but it is still double the price that it was pre the Ukraine war. The rand has reduced or got weaker by 35%. So the estimated cost of this is going to be about 500 billion rand over this 20-year period. We don't need to try and knock a drawing pin into the wall with a sledgehammer. That's what this is about, and it doesn't make financial sense. So we really need government to explain how they arrive at this economic decision, and then on top of that, we know that the energy plan is going to be addressed largely by Kusile's 3 units coming back on stream, Medupi's units coming back on stream, the one with the boiler that exploded. We've got the Kuberg power plant, its 2 units going to be back on stream in the next couple of years. The need for this is not there. And on top of it, they've gone ahead with the renewable energy projects in the last 2 years. We wouldn't need a Karpowership. So there's something amiss here, and we need transparency on this.
Well, you raise a couple of important issues there, Wayne, and one of those is a few years ago we had the opportunity, or government had the opportunity, to sign on this deal at a fraction of the cost, and they didn't. They had the opportunity to implement many plans that government has put in place in order to deal with the issues surrounding Eskom and provision of power, and that has not actually happened. Do we have? Is there an option for Karpowership to run for a lot less than the 20 years that is proposed? Can it go for 5 years?
Well, now they're putting forward those ideas that maybe not 20 years, maybe less. But again, maybe doesn't cut it. Is it 10 years? Is it 5 years? Is it 3 years? They do say that the cost, and there is a lot of fixed costs that would have to be factored in that will push the cost up. So then you're talking, if you bring it down to 10 years, you're talking probably closer to 700 billion rand over this next period. And remember, liquid natural gas is subjected to the rand-dollar exchange rate. The rand is weakening, as we know. So just the current weak rand, just where liquid natural gas is right now, it just makes it untenable. What we need, and what government doesn't do properly, is plan. We have an integrated resource plan, the IRP, last updated in 2019. So we're 4 years down the line. It should be updated every 2 years minimum. And we have Kgosientsho Ramokgopa talking about extending the life of old coal plants, and we've got all these other plants coming on stream, renewables coming on stream. We know that a lot of rooftop solar is being installed. And in the midst of all of this confusion, government just wants to force ahead and forge ahead with a Karpowerships plan, which is far too expensive. So we need clarity. We need to see the numbers. We're not opposed to energy solutions that are going to get us through this crisis. Don't get me wrong there. We understand the need, but you certainly do not go down locking this country with a noose around its neck to the extent of the Karpowerships deal. We've been in court with them, by the way, in NERSA for the last year, and they are backpedaling. They do not want to give us the numbers and how they arrive at the costs. They're doing everything they can to make sure that this deal is not transparent. And that's not allowed to happen in our laws and our constitution. The citizens have every right to understand how the costs are arrived at. So until that's happened, until the environmental impact assessment approvals are given, and a number of public engagement processes, it's not going to go ahead. And just like civil society stopped the nuclear deal, Zuma's nuclear deal with Russia in 2016 and 2017, this deal will be stopped through the courts because it is irrational and it doesn't make sense for South Africa.
Wayne, I want to draw your attention to the integrated resource plan. And you talked about government and how they fail to plan and how something is amiss. So the first part of my question is all of this apparent confusion a smokescreen of sorts? Because there is an integrated resource plan and multiple other plans that government has put out there and said they would work on, but they're not following through on those plans. And you suggest that something is amiss. My question to you is this a smokescreen to what's actually happening behind that screen, if you will?
Well, it could be. In our eyes, when there's irrationality in decisions, it's either due to incompetence or corruption, when you think about it. Irrational decisions, we've seen it in the ETOL matter, we've seen it on that nuclear deal that they tried to force through, and others. When it doesn't make sense, you either look at the competence of the people making these decisions, or you try to find out what is really lying behind these decisions. We believe that this deal would be fraught with corruption. There are many middlemen. This is a good way to get money offshore. So as far as we're concerned, until it makes sense, until the plans are clear, and the IRP is updated, and we can see exactly what we need for how long, which sources are coming on stream by when, which ones are being taken off the system and retired, as some of the coal plants are. Until we understand all of that, you cannot come to the public and say, we're going ahead with 1,200 megawatts and 3 ships. They're going to be moored over here, here, and here around the coastline, and it's going to cost us now, if you start looking at a shorter period, probably 700 billion rand. It's not acceptable. We need clarity, and we need, and that's what we believe this is, a smokescreen for ulterior motives.
Wayne, I have no doubt in my mind whatsoever that you've done the numbers on this. And that you wouldn't have raised it if, in your mind, or at least according to the numbers that you've come up with, something wasn't amiss. What are your numbers looking like compared to the 500 billion that government proposes? Well,
government's proposal initially was 220 billion, but that was when the rand was 35% stronger than it was, and the price of liquid natural gas was half the current price. So you put it now at 500 billion, but as we say, if they want a shorter period, it's going to go higher. This will be the most expensive electricity by far, not just a little bit, by far. It will be grossly expensive, and again, locked in, the country locked into it for another minimum of a decade, but they're talking about 20 years. They have indicated that maybe it should be shorter, but this is not how you run a country. This is not how you deal with issues like this with maybes. Gwede Mantashe has been pushing this for a long time. He was the only person pushing it. Now we've heard the President, we've heard Enoch Godongwana, the Finance Minister, we've heard the Department of Transport, the Transport Minister, and others. So everybody seems to be lining up for something here, but nobody's providing us with the clarity. We've got professional modeling that is being done on this, and once we understand the figures, once Karpowership and NERSA gives us their calculations and the figures which they refuse to give us, then we can start to see how off they are and what our model looks like, and find out exactly what this is going to cost us. But until then, the court process will remain in place, and the courts will have to rule on whether this is the best deal for South Africa or not.
Well, I'm still hoping that you'll throw your numbers out there so we just have an understanding if we were to compare apples with apples.
Yeah, no, we need to understand the full cost, but we don't, because there's such a lack of transparency and smoke and mirrors around this deal. So we need clarity from government. We need to understand how they're basing this decision. And then we'll put that into our model. We'll look at what our models say, and we'll look at the IRP, the 2019 model. That's the one we have to work off now, with all other input that government is providing us. And we will, with civil society has got answers to and solutions for a number of the problems we have. Sadly, government doesn't seem to think it needs to engage with civil society on these matters.
Okay, and obviously engaging via the courts, hopefully, will yield some results. Well, talk to us about what OUTA suggestions are for South Africa in terms of electricity generation.
Well, government has a plan. They've got multiple plans. They need to stick to the plan that they've put forward, the emergency plan now. And that is to make sure that the 6 biggest coal plants that are going to continue with their current life, as was put in the 2019 IRP, are maintained, remove the sabotage that is happening, make sure that Kusile and Medupi come back on stream, their units that have been down for some time, and we get those 2 brand new power plants operating efficiently. Sadly, they will never operate at 100% because they were badly built, badly designed, but at 80% it's fine. Bring on Kuberg's power plants to 2 units and allow the renewable energy bid windows to be completed, because renewable energy, by the way, comes on stream quite quickly. And that's another fallacy around the Karpowerships. People think the ships just pull into port and start delivering electricity tomorrow. It takes over a year once those ships get into port to put up all the infrastructure that is required. So it's not going to happen in a year. If you do all of those things that they've said they're going to do, we will not need Karpowerships. We will not need it. Had they gone ahead with the renewable programs that have been put forward to government over the last 5 years, guess what? And this is the modeling that is done by Meridian and other specialists. We would not have load shedding today. Load shedding today exists because government has procrastinated and not made the decisions they should have 5 years ago. So we sit in this problem because of the procrastination. So we don't need to create a problem and then try and resolve it with a very, very, very expensive Karpowerships deal.
OUTA's CEO Wayne Duvenage speaking to us this afternoon on Karpowerships and saying that they do not work, certainly not for South Africa, and that if government had not procrastinated, we would not be in these instances of load shedding.